cerebellum, and stem. Okay? How do I know what is what? I'm going to look for the grooves. The grooves are the sulcus, if they're small, or big, if they're fissure. So the longitudinal fissure cuts the brain into left and right hemisphere. So it's pretty much identical, 100% on both sides. Okay? So when I do that, I can look on one side, go directly in the center, and say, hey, which one goes all the way down with nice bump in between. So I have, oh, there's a nice groove. All the way down. So this is frontal, this is parietal. The first bump, the first bump must be the pre-central gyrus. The first bump in the back, the post-central gyrus. So these are the two gyrus you have to be aware of. Here in the cortex. Inside, you also have to know the singular gyrus. So these are those three gyrus you need to be aware of. Okay? And their function. Right? Right?
Yes.
Okay. So then, if I begin with the hemisphere, obvious in a lot of model is the corpus callosum that connects the left and the right hemisphere. The first bump above it would be the singular gyrus. In it then would be the spacing, and those are the ventricles. So in the left and right hemisphere, I have the two lateral ventricles. Here, this space where the pen is would be the third ventricle. And then I would go into this little canal, the aqueduct, into this space, the fourth ventricle. Okay? I am not going to use the model for the ventricles. I'm going to use the gray things for the ventricle, like I showed you. Those are the ones I'll use for the ventricles. Okay? So then we see the ball, thalamus, under it, hypothalamus, attached to it the pituitary gland by the little line, the infundibulum. Infundibulum. You guys could see over there, huh? Those magical visions. Okay. Very good. Okay. So when I look, what else is there? Oh, the little pink stuff is my choroid plexus. Remember, that's what makes the fluid, the CSF. I also see with the thalamus, hypothalamus, the letter K, epithalamus. In the epithalamus is the pineal gland. Okay? So we use those two interchangeably in these models. Okay? Let's see what else do I see here for the cerebrum. We have our frontal, parietal, occipital, lateral, sulcus, separates clearly the frontal and the parietal from the temporal. Right? I'm trying to do the cerebrum first. Ooh, a couple things. All the information from here must go down to the body. It's going into a big tube, the peduncle, and that's them. Oops. So that's the cerebrum, so we call this a cerebral peduncle. And then all that information is going to divide and go into the cerebellum. So I have the cerebellar peduncle. They're literally big tube full of axons going. Okay. Questions? Good. Okay. So I'm going to look at my stem. The stem is that little stalk here. The stem is made up of 3 parts. The ball I can see, the pons. The bump under it I can see, the medulla oblongata. But the midbrain I need to go inside to see. And that is above the pon is this area here, the midbrain. And I know that they are anterior to the 4 bumps. The 4 bumps are the corpora quadrigemini, the top 2 are the superior colliculi, and the bottom 2 the inferior. Your book called them the tectum also. I think that's everything for this. Questions? Okay. That will leave us with the cerebellum. The cerebellum, of course, just like the cerebrum, has 2 hemispheres attached to each other using this bridge called the vermis. And if I cut the vermis, I could see those big pyramidal neurons that forms the arbor vitae. Questions? Let's see. I'm trying to see if I forgot anything from the list.